All right, ready to dive in? Today we're going deep, really deep, into something we all know and love, or maybe sometimes take for granted, our skin.
The skin. It's pretty
Mm-mm.
amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, it really is. You sent over some really interesting nursing student materials on skin, and I gotta say, I'm already learning a ton. Like, I'm way more aware of what's going on beneath the surface now.
It's funny. A lot of people don't think about their skin that much, but it really is doing so much for us, behind the scenes.
Okay, so big question first. Why IS skin so important? I mean, we see it, we feel it, but what's it actually doing for us?
Well, think about it. It's like our first line of defense against, well, everything out there. Germs, the elements, you name it. Keeps our insides in.
Right. Makes sense.
It's also how we regulate our temperature, like a built-in thermostat.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading about that. Pretty crucial stuff.
And of course, touch, how we experience the world through feeling. Imagine if you couldn't feel a hug or the warmth of the sun.
Whoa. Yeah, no thanks. So we've got protection, temperature control, sensation. Anything else I'm missing?
That pretty much covers the basics.
Right.
But what's really cool is how our skin changes throughout our lives.
Right. I was thinking about that. I mean, wrinkles, everyone knows about wrinkles. But it's more than that, right? It's like a whole process from baby skin to, well, more experienced skin.
Totally. Baby skin is so delicate because it's still developing that protective barrier.
Oh, that's right.
As we get older, that barrier gets stronger, but we also start seeing the effects of, sun exposure, lifestyle choices, to just time.
Time marches on.
It does. You've probably even noticed your own skin changing over time, getting a little drier, maybe a little less elastic.
Yeah, definitely not as bouncy as it used to be. Okay, so here's where I thought it got really interesting. All those marks and changes we see on our skin, things our nurses call lesions, there's like a whole system for classifying them, right?
There is. It's almost like a secret language that healthcare providers use to understand what's happening on the skin.
A secret language. I'm intrigued.
So there are primary lesions, which are like the initial changes, and then secondary lesions, which develop from those.
Okay, I'm ready to decode. Give me some examples. What kinds of lesions are we talking about?
All right, let's start with macules. Those are flat, discolored spots. Everyone has them.
Pacules, flat spots. Got it.
Like freckles or age spots. Totally harmless, usually. But sometimes, changes in macules can mean something more serious.
Okay, so got to keep an eye on those. What else?
And then you've got papules. Those are small, raised bumps.
Papules. Bumps. Okay.
Think about warts, for example. Those are papules.
Oh, so a wart is a papule. So does that mean it's always something to worry about?
Not always. Most warts are benign, meaning they're harmless.
Mm.
But it's worth noting that some skin cancers can actually start out as papules. So it's always a good idea to get anything new or changing checked out by a dermatologist.
Good advice. So we've got flat spots, we've got bumps. What about those fluid-filled things, like blisters?
Those are called vesicles.
Vesicles, fluid-filled. Okay, got it.
And they can show up for all sorts of reasons.
Mm.
Chicken pox, burns, even just friction.
Ah, yeah, chicken pox. Those images in the nursing materials were pretty intense. And blisters are never fun.
Definitely not. And sometimes those vesicles can get filled with pus, and then they become pustules,
Yeah,
like you see with acne.
okay, I see. So we've got acules flat, papules raised, vesicles fluid-filled, and pustules, which are basically vesicles with pus.
Exactly. You're getting the hang of this lesion language. Now, have you ever noticed those areas of skin that are like thickened and scaly?
Oh, right. The materials mentioned psoriasis. That was a pretty vivid description.
Yeah, those are called plaques. And psoriasis is a great example because it's a chronic condition where the immune system is actually attacking healthy skin cells. And that's what creates those itchy, scaly patches.
It's not just cosmetic either, right? The materials mentioned it can impact people's lives in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. It can be really tough to deal with, both physically and emotionally. It's a reminder that skin conditions are about so much more than just how they look.
Yeah, that's a powerful point. Okay, so far we've got macules, papules, vesicles, pustules, and plaques. What else should we add to our lesion vocabulary?
Hmm. Two more worth mentioning are wheals and ulcers.
Wheals and ulcers. Okay, break those down for me.
Wheals are those raised, itchy areas we get from things like allergic reactions or bug bites. Think hives, mosquito bites, that sort of thing.
Ah, okay, those are wheals. And ulcers.
Ulcers are open sores that can be pretty painful and take a while to heal.
Ouch. Yeah, those don't sound fun.
And that's why this whole lesion language is actually really helpful. It gives you a better sense of what your skin is trying to tell you and when it's probably time to see a doctor.
So, knowing your lesion ABCs can actually help you advocate for your health. I love that. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about some common skin conditions that might be behind some of these lesions.
Sounds good. Let's start with one that I'm guessing most people have experienced at some point. Contact dermatitis.
Oh, I know contact dermatitis all too well. Remember that time I tried that new laundry detergent and broke out in a rash?
A classic case. It basically happens when your skin comes into contact with something that irritates it or causes an allergic reaction.
So it's like your skin saying, hey, I don't like this.
Exactly.
And the best way to deal with it is to just figure out what's causing it and avoid it, right?
Exactly. And there are some soothing treatments that can help with the symptoms, like cool compresses or over-the-counter antihistamines.
Good to know. Now, let's talk about psoriasis. You mentioned it earlier, and those nursing student materials really highlighted how much it can affect people's lives.
It really is a complex condition, and it's fascinating because it's an autoimmune condition, which means the body's own immune system is mistakenly attacking healthy skin cells.
And that leads to those plaques, right? Those thick, scaly patches.
Yes, and they can be itchy, scaly, and even painful. It's not just a cosmetic issue. It can really impact a person's quality of life.
Right. It can affect everything from sleep to self-esteem to relationships.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than skin deep.
Exactly. It's a reminder that sometimes what we see on the surface is just a small part of the story.
Okay, now for something I think everyone should be aware of, skin cancer.
It's a serious concern, no doubt, and understanding the different types and how to spot them early is crucial.
The nursing materials focused on three main types: squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and melanoma. What makes those the main ones to watch out for?
Well, they're the most common types, and they're classified based on the layer of skin where they originate.
Makes sense.
Squamous cell carcinoma and basal cell carcinoma tend to be slower growing and less likely to spread. Melanoma, on the other hand, is more aggressive and can be life-threatening if it's not caught early.
Oh, wow. Okay, so early detection is key there. But how do we even know what to look for? The materials mention something called actinic keratosis. Is that one of the cancer types?
Actinic keratosis is actually a precancerous condition. It often appears as rough, scaly patches on sun-exposed areas of the skin, like the face, ears, and hands.
So it's like a warning sign that something's up.
Yeah, it's basically a sign that the skin has been damaged by the sun and has the potential to develop into squamous cell carcinoma if it's not treated.
So that's why sun protection is so important. But when it comes to melanoma, the most dangerous type, there's that handy mnemonic to remember, right?
The ABCDEs.
Yes, the ABCDEs of melanoma. Can you remind us what those stand for?
Of course. A is for asymmetry. So one half of the mole doesn't match the other half.
Asymmetry on it.
B is for border irregularity. The edges of the mole might look ragged or blurred.
Border irregularity, B. What's next?
C is for color. The mole might have different shades of brown, black, or even red, white, or blue.
Okay, so uneven color. Color C.
D is for diameter. If the mole is larger than 6 millimeters across, about the size of a pencil eraser, that's something to pay attention to.
Diameter, D. And the last one.
And E is for evolving. This basically means the mole is changing in size, shape, or color.
Evolving. Yeah, okay, I think I can remember that. The ABCDEs of melanoma. Knowing those signs could literally save a life. Okay, ready for a topic that might make some people squirm a little?
Hit me with it.
Let's talk about skin infections and infestations.
Ooh, get ready for the ick factor. These can be caused by a whole range of microscopic bad guys, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and even parasites.
I'm already feeling a little itchy just thinking about it.
Well, before we delve into the creepy crawlies, let's start with bacterial infections. I'm guessing you've heard of impetigo?
Impetigo, yeah, that rings a bell.
It's a super common bacterial infection we see in kids, but adults can get it too. Usually it's caused by staph or strep bacteria.
Staph and strep, those are like the usual suspects, right?
Right. And with impetigo, you get those characteristic red blisters that burst and crest over. They often
Yeah.
show up around the face and nose.
Ah, yeah, I remember those. Like a badge of honor from the playground. But not really. So what's the best way to deal with it if you do get it?
Good hygiene is key. Washing hands frequently, keeping those blisters covered, and avoiding sharing personal items.
Makes sense. Now, the nursing student materials also mention cellulitis, which sounded a little more serious.
It can be. Cellulitis is a deeper skin infection that can spread pretty quickly. It usually shows up as a red, swollen, painful area of skin that feels warm to the touch.
So, same bacteria as impetigo, but it goes deeper.
Often, yes. But sometimes cellulitis is caused by a type of bacteria called MRSA, which is resistant to many antibiotics.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. So if you suspect cellulitis, definitely see a doctor right away.
Definitely.
Okay, now on to viral infections. The nursing materials listed a whole bunch: shingles, herpes simplex, chickenpox, even HPV. So what's the common denominator here?
They're all caused by viruses.
Right, of course.
The good news is that a lot of viral infections are what we call self-limiting, meaning they resolve on their own over time.
Okay, that's reassuring. But are they all contagious?
It really depends on the specific virus. Chickenpox is highly contagious, for example, while shingles is less so.
So different viruses, different levels of contagiousness. Got it. Anything else we should know about viral skin infections?
Well, it's worth mentioning that while some viral infections, like the common cold, can clear up on their own, others might benefit from antiviral medications.
So it's always best to talk to a doctor if you're not sure what you're dealing with.
Exactly. Now, are you ready for the fungal infections?
Bring 'em on.
You've probably heard of athlete's foot or ringworm. Those are classic examples of fungal infections. They're caused by a type of fungus called tinea.
Ah, athlete's foot. Taking me back to gym class, not a pleasant memory. So how do you get rid of those fungal infections?
Well, they can be pretty stubborn. Often they require a long course of treatment with antifungal medications.
So patience is key. Okay, before we move on, we have to address those creepy crawlies we mentioned earlier.
You talking about parasitic infestations?
Yep, I'm already getting phantom itches just thinking about them.
Well, let's just say that parasitic infestations, like head lice, are not for the faint of heart. They're highly contagious and spread easily through direct contact or shared belongings.
Okay, enough. You're making my head itch. Seriously, though, what can you do if you do get head lice?
First, don't panic. They're treatable with special shampoos or lotions called pediculicides. And just as important as treating the infestation is preventing reinfestation. So you need to thoroughly clean any bedding, clothing, or other items that might have come in contact with the lice.
Sounds like a thorough cleaning is in order. Wow, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Everything from the basic structure of the skin to the language of lesions, all sorts of common skin conditions, and even those creepy crawlies we'd rather not think about.
It's a lot to take in, for sure. But understanding these basics is really empowering. It helps you take better care of your skin and recognize when it's time to see a doctor.
I totally agree. And speaking of seeing a doctor, in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore the world of dermatologic treatments and all the ways experts can help us keep our skin healthy and thriving. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. We're deep diving into all things skin, and honestly, I'm kind of amazed by how much I'm learning.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? There's so much going on beneath the surface.
Right. Before the break, we were talking about all the amazing advancements in dermatologic treatments.
Yeah.
There's so many options out there now.
It's true. Dermatology's come a long way. There's a lot of hope for people who are dealing with, even really challenging skin conditions.
I remember seeing a whole section in the nursing student materials on all the different types of medications, creams, pills, even light therapy.
There really is a wide range of options these days. And of course, the choice of treatment depends on, well, a lot of things. The specific condition, how severe it is, the individual person.
So it's not just about finding the right medication, but the right approach for each person. Exactly. A good dermatologist will consider the whole picture, medical history, lifestyle, even preferences, when they're putting together a treatment plan.
That makes sense. Okay, so speaking of specific treatments, I remember the materials mentioned PUVA therapy for psoriasis. What's that all about again?
So PUVA therapy is a type of phototherapy. Basically, it combines a medication called Sorolin with exposure to ultraviolet, a light, or UVA light.
Okay, that sounds kind of complicated.
It is a bit.
Yeah.
But basically, the Sorolin makes the skin more sensitive to the light. And that combination helps slow down the growth of skin cells, which is a big issue in psoriasis.
So it's like using light in a very controlled way to treat the condition.
That's a good way to put it. And it can
Yeah.
be really effective for some people with more severe psoriasis. But, like any medical treatment, it's not for everyone, and there can be side effects.
Right, got to talk to the experts. It seems like every time we talk about a treatment, it comes back to don't try this at home, folks. See a doctor.
It's true. It's tempting to DIY it, but skin conditions can be tricky. What works for one person might not work for another, and some conditions can even look like others.
Right, so getting the right diagnosis is key.
Exactly.
It's like trying to fix your car engine by watching YouTube videos. Sometimes you just need a mechanic.
Huh. Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of different needs, one thing that stood out to me in those materials was how much our skin care needs change throughout our lives.
Oh, that's so true. I remember reading about how delicate premature baby skin is.
It's incredibly fragile. Their skin is so thin, and that protective barrier isn't fully developed yet.
Makes them much more vulnerable, right?
Exactly. They need a very specialized care.
Wow. It really makes you appreciate how amazing our skin is, even when it's fully developed.
Right. Always working to protect us.
And it changes so much as we grow. Think about all those scrapes and bumps we get as kids.
Our skin is constantly repairing itself.
And then there's puberty. Hello, acne.
Ah, yes. Teenage acne. A rite of passage for many. Hormones go wild, oil production increases, pores get clogged. It's a recipe for breakouts.
Not fun, but at least there are treatments that can help.
For sure. And even if you're not dealing with a specific condition, our skincare needs just keep changing as we get older.
Well, yeah, our bodies change, so why not our skin, right?
Exactly. One of the biggest changes is that our skin gets thinner and drier as we age. We produce less oil, and we lose some of that collagen and elastin.
Collagen, that's the stuff that keeps us looking young, right?
Yep. And elastin helps our skin bounce back.
So basically, we're all slowly turning into raisins.
Well, not quite. But those changes do lead to wrinkles and sogging skin.
Oh, okay. So what can we do about it? Aside from, like, accepting our raisiny fate.
Well, first and foremost, keep your skin hydrated. Moisturize regularly, especially as you get older.
Makes sense. Drink lots of water, slather on the moisturizer. What about sun protection? Is that still as crucial as it was when we were younger?
Absolutely. In fact, it might be even more important as we age.
Really? Why?
Well, think about all those years of sun exposure adding up. Sun damage really contributes to wrinkles, age spots, and even skin cancer risk.
So slather on the sunscreen, even if it's a cloudy day.
Exactly. And don't forget hats and sunglasses. It all helps.
Okay, so hydration and sun protection. What else should we be thinking about as we age?
Well, lifestyle choices play a role too. Things like smoking, for instance.
Smoking's bad for you, we know that. But it affects skin, too.
Big time. It speeds up the aging process, makes wrinkles worse, and just gives you a dull complexion.
Yikes. Add that to the list of reasons to quit. Or never start, even better.
Definitely. And a healthy diet can make a big difference. Lots of fruits, vegetables, antioxidants.
It's like the saying, you are what you eat, but for your skin.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of sleep. Give your skin time to repair itself.
Beauty sleep. It's a real thing. So it seems like taking care of your skin as you age is about more than just fancy creams. It's a whole lifestyle approach.
Totally. Taking care of yourself from the inside out.
Love that. And I love the idea of, embracing the aging process too. Like, those wrinkles tell a story.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between caring for your skin and accepting the changes that come with time.
Beautifully said. Wow, we've covered so much in this deep dive, from the tiny details of skin structure to all the different conditions and treatments, and now how our skin changes throughout life.
It's a lot, but it's important stuff. And there's one more crucial aspect of skin health that I think we need to talk about.
Ooh, lay it on me. What else is there?
We need to talk about the psychological and social impacts of skin conditions. Because let's face it, our skin is out there for the world to see, and when something affects how it looks, it can really affect how we feel about ourselves.
That's so true. We often focus on the physical side, but the emotional and social side can be just as hard, maybe even harder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. In the last part of our deep dive, we're going to explore those often overlooked aspects of skin health, the psychological and social impacts.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring the world of skin. I'm telling you, this has been eye-opening.
It's amazing, right? We really do take our skin for granted, but it affects so much of our lives.
Absolutely. And before the break, you mentioned we'd be talking about something really important, the psychological and social impacts of skin conditions, something that doesn't always get, the attention it deserves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. Our skin is constantly on display. And when something's going on that changes how it looks, well, it can really mess with your self-esteem, how you interact with other people.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to imagine how tough that would be, especially those teenage years with acne, or if you have a condition that's really visible, people staring, making comments.
It's rough. And it happens more often than you'd think.
I know, I was reading in those nursing student materials about people with psoriasis who, avoid going out, even avoid relationships because they're so self-conscious.
It's really common, unfortunately. People with skin conditions often feel ashamed, embarrassed, like they're being judged or rejected just because of their skin.
That's awful. It really makes you realize skin is so much more than just an organ. It's part of how we see ourselves,
Absolutely. It's tied to our identity. And that's why it's so crucial to think about the mental and emotional side of skin conditions, not just the physical symptoms.
Right. It's not just about creams and pills.
Exactly. It's also about support, helping people cope with those emotional and social challenges.
So where does that support come from? I mean, therapy seems like it could be helpful.
Oh, definitely. Therapy can be a game changer. It gives people a safe place to talk about those feelings, those insecurities. And therapists can teach coping skills for stress, for building self-esteem, help people navigate those tricky social situations.
And support groups, right.
Yes, support groups are fantastic. Connecting with other people who really get it, who've been there,
Hmm.
that can be so powerful.
So you don't feel so alone. Are there any other tips, like for everyday life? You know, those moments when someone says something insensitive or they'd just stare?
Ugh, yeah, those are tough. Sometimes just being direct helps, like, hey, I know my skin looks different, but it's just a condition I have. Or, you can use humor, deflect the attention.
Humor. I love that.
Right, like this rash, it's my party trick.
Turning it into a joke takes away their power.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But also, you don't owe anyone an explanation. If you don't want to engage, you can just ignore them, walk away.
Right. Set those boundaries. So important. But
Uh-huh.
what if it's more serious, you know? Like someone's really struggling emotionally.
Then it's definitely time to reach out to a professional. A therapist can help with things like anxiety, depression, body image issues, all those things that can be tied to having a skin condition.
This has been such an insightful conversation. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the physical stuff, but the emotional and social side is huge.
I agree. It all goes together. And I think it just
Yeah.
shows, how much more skin is than just an organ. It's a reflection of who we are, inside and out.
I love that. Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. So much amazing information about skin,
Mm.
the anatomy, the conditions, the treatments, and this really important conversation about the psychological and social impact.
It's been a journey. Hopefully our listeners have learned something new and maybe feel a little more connected to their own skin.
I know, I do. And I think the biggest takeaway is just be kind to your skin and be kind to yourself. It's not about perfection, it's a journey.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into the world of skin. We'll see you next time.
Stay curious, everyone.